You're seeing this video because something inside you is cracking. This isn't casual browsing or digital drift. You've arrived at this moment because your internal architecture is showing stress fractures that signal imminent collapse. What I'm about to reveal represents the hidden preparation your psyche undergoes before complete structural failure. There exists a quantum signature that less than 1% of people recognize while it's happening. And if you're here right now, you're already displaying the markers. The real question is, can you see what's actually occurring beneath the surface symptoms? Most people monitor external metrics when approaching breakdown. They track their productivity decline, count their panic attacks, measure their sleep deterioration. But here's the truth your nervous system has been signaling. The tremors before collapse aren't warnings to prevent it. They're invitations to prepare for necessary destruction. You've reached what quantum psychologists call the decoherence threshold, the point where your constructed identity can no longer maintain coherent superposition. Every boundary you've ignored, every emotion you've suppressed, every authentic need you've sacrificed has created interference patterns that are now collapsing your wave function. You are standing at the edge of your psychological waveform's collapse. Consider this carefully. In quantum mechanics, particles exist in superposition, occupying all possible states simultaneously, until observation forces them into one definite state. Your identity has been existing in superposition, holding contradictory versions of yourself in unstable equilibrium. The version that performs and the version that's exhausted. The version that maintains appearances and the version that's screaming underneath. These contradictory states have been coexisting in quantum tension, and the observation moment, the collapse, is approaching with quantum inevitability. But here's where most people make the critical error. Right at the edge of necessary wave function collapse, they try to force the system back into superposition. They panic, grip harder, attempt to maintain all contradictory states simultaneously. They frantically check for reassurance, seeking measurement that might collapse them into the safe outcome. This is precisely backwards. The intelligence of quantum collapse in psychological terms requires something that feels dangerous: conscious surrender to definite state resolution. Look at the wisdom in quantum processes. An electron doesn't fight the moment observation collapses its probability cloud into a specific location. It doesn't create contingency plans or resist measurement. It instantaneously resolves into definiteness, trusting the intelligence of quantum mechanics. This is the relationship you're being asked to develop with your own identity collapse. Here's the paradox. Everything you're experiencing as threat is actually quantum necessity approaching. While you've been trying to maintain superposition indefinitely, your deeper system has been accumulating the observation pressure needed for a collapse calibrated exactly to your developmental edge. The timing isn't random, it's quantum mechanically precise. This changes everything. Letting go isn't about accepting defeat. It's about releasing your resistance to which quantum state your identity will collapse into. When you stop trying to control the measurement outcome, you create space for an emergence your interference patterns would never permit. This is where quantum entanglement becomes your deepest teacher. In quantum physics, when particles become entangled, they share states instantaneously across any distance. Your consciousness has become entangled with your breakdown. Every aspect of your identity, your relationships, your purpose, your beliefs, your sense of self, exists in entangled correlation. The moment you allow collapse in one entangled aspect, the resolution cascades instantaneously through every other dimension. Resistance creates what physicists call destructive interference, where waves cancel each other out, creating nodes of zero amplitude. It operates from the illusion that you can prevent wave function collapse through force of will. Permission creates constructive interference, where waves amplify each other toward resolution. It operates from recognition that you are the quantum field observing the collapse, not the particle being collapsed. Pause here and feel this quantum shift. You aren't trying to prevent collapse. You're allowing your probability cloud to resolve into its next definite state. This reframe alters your entire threat response. Instead of broadcasting resistance that creates destructive interference, you begin broadcasting acceptance that allows constructive interference. And constructive interference is what allows breakdown to become breakthrough rather than fragmentation. Your mind is likely generating catastrophic probability calculations right now, predicting which collapsed states will destroy you, calculating odds of various disaster scenarios, measuring the likelihood of complete annihilation. This quantum anxiety isn't sabotage. It's your consciousness attempting to collapse the wave function through fearful observation before it collapses naturally through surrender. Every transformation includes this moment of quantum uncertainty before the collapse that precedes emergence. You've been developing tolerance for superposition through every ambiguous situation you've survived, every paradox you've held, every moment you've remained present while multiple contradictory realities coexisted. That quantum capacity you've built is about to be activated at a level you haven't experienced. The psyche operates on quantum timing, not Newtonian timing. What registers as chaos from your particle perspective is actually precise wave function evolution from your field perspective. Every element of your breakdown has been existing in superposition in your unconscious. Rejected parts existing as probability waves, unsustainable patterns existing in unstable quantum states, authentic truths existing as potential energy waiting for the right observation to collapse them into kinetic reality. Your entire identity has been a probability distribution reorganizing around a collapse point that won't be denied. This is why surrender feels both terrifying and relieving. You're not just releasing control over which state you'll collapse into. You're releasing the exhausting illusion that you could ever control quantum collapse through classical mechanics. You're entering partnership with the same quantum intelligence that collapses probability clouds into particles and resolves uncertainty into definite states. Here's the practice that transforms everything at the quantum level. Instead of identifying as the particle about to be measured and collapsed, begin identifying as the observer, the consciousness that remains unchanged regardless of which state emerges from collapse. Sense yourself as the quantum field itself, not as the wave function collapsing within that field. Feel the energy of being the space in which all possible states exist, not any particular state that might emerge. This identity shift separates those who are traumatized by crisis from those who are initiated by it at the quantum level. Most people identify as the wave function desperately trying to avoid collapse. You're being invited to identify as the quantum field, the observer consciousness that witnesses collapse without being threatened by any outcome. Take this moment and comment below with this exact phrase: I am the field, not the particle. Don't type it mechanically. Feel it as quantum truth. Let it be your declaration that you're shifting identification from the collapsing wave function to the field that remains coherent through all collapse. This is your signal that you're ready for quantum resolution. When you genuinely embody this observer position, your experience of crisis undergoes quantum transformation. The fear doesn't vanish, but your relationship to fear shifts from particle to field. You stop experiencing breakdown as happening to you, the particle, and start experiencing it as happening within you, the field. The collapse becomes a quantum event you're witnessing. The destruction becomes observable phenomenon rather than identity annihilation. But here's what quantum psychology rarely addresses. The phase immediately before wave function collapse often involves quantum tunneling, where your consciousness passes through energy barriers that should be classically impossible. This isn't deterioration. It's quantum mechanics allowing passage through barriers your classical mind says cannot be crossed. Behind the surface, your identity is exhibiting quantum tunneling behavior, appearing on the other side of obstacles without moving through them in classical space. Your defended self is experiencing quantum uncertainty at maximum intensity. Your psychological system is in what physicists call quantum critical state. This quantum tunneling before collapse isn't evidence you're failing. It's evidence that quantum processes are operating beyond classical rules. It's your system accessing non-classical pathways. It's the quantum leap moment before the new eigenstate emerges. Most people interpret quantum uncertainty as confirmation that disaster is imminent and try to force classical measurement. You're not going to collapse your wave function prematurely. Understanding consciousness frequencies at the quantum level will give you navigation tools during dissolution. Trauma activation creates incoherent quantum noise, random, destructive interference patterns. Coherent heart-brain states create what physicists call phase-locked frequencies, oscillations that synchronize into constructive interference at 0.1 Hz. When you consciously practice dropping into coherent states, you literally create standing waves in your biofield that can hold quantum uncertainty without collapsing into fear-based eigenstates. This isn't abstract spirituality. This is quantum biology. Your cells generate biophotons, actual quantum light emissions. Your microtubules may operate as quantum computers, according to the Penrose-Hameroff theory of consciousness. Your nervous system creates measurable electromagnetic fields that exhibit quantum properties. When you align your awareness with quantum coherence, the state where your biofield exhibits constructive rather than destructive interference, you create what physicists call quantum entanglement with possibility itself, where your consciousness becomes correlated with outcomes that serve your evolution. Every sensation you experience either fragments your quantum coherence into decoherence or integrates you into phase-locked resonance. This is why somatic awareness becomes essential during breakdown. You're not trying to suppress terror or perform false calm. You're becoming intimate with the quantum information moving through your field and making conscious choices about which frequencies you amplify through observation. The final quantum defenses will surface now. Sudden compulsions that demand immediate measurement and collapse. Relationship crises that force premature observation. External circumstances that seem to be collapsing your wave function into worst-case scenarios. This isn't evidence that your breakdown will destroy you. It's the old operating system making its final attempt to control which eigenstate emerges. Here's how to navigate this quantum resistance. Don't fight these measurement attempts, and don't collapse prematurely through fearful observation. Acknowledge them the way you might acknowledge quantum fluctuations in the vacuum. Temporary perturbations in the field, not permanent reality. Your task is to remain in the observer state regardless of what quantum fluctuations move through your field during dissolution. Quantum-informed action will begin emerging naturally when you stop resisting wave function collapse. This isn't the paralysis of being trapped between quantum states. This is the lucid responsiveness of a system that's allowing natural quantum resolution. You'll find yourself taking actions that were impossible from your previous eigenstate. Boundaries will emerge that weren't accessible while you maintained superposition. You'll release what your quantum system knows must decohere. The difference between quantum-informed action and classical panic reaction is measurable in your biofield. Panic creates electromagnetic chaos, incoherent frequencies, destructive interference, decoherence. Integration creates quantum coherence, phase-locked oscillations, constructive interference, entanglement with beneficial outcomes. It's the difference between being a particle buffeted by forces and being a wave that moves through the quantum field with natural intelligence. If what I'm sharing is creating quantum resonance, if your field is recognizing these patterns as truth, then subscribe not just to receive content, but as a commitment to quantum consciousness. Click subscribe as your declaration that you're choosing quantum transformation over classical resistance, understanding that collapse at one level is emergence at another. Trust in quantum timing becomes critical now. Every depth tradition addresses necessary death because it's a universal law at the quantum level. In quantum mechanics, systems must collapse from superposition into definite states for the next level of complexity to emerge. Schrödinger's cat cannot remain both alive and dead forever. Observation must eventually collapse the paradox. Your identity cannot maintain contradictory superposition indefinitely. Quantum resolution will happen at precisely the moment your system has the coherence to integrate it. Breakdowns are not random collapse events. They are precisely timed quantum phase transitions, where your deeper field intelligence allows collapse of unsustainable superposition. What feels like your life falling apart is actually quantum necessity. The universe refusing to let you maintain unstable states beyond their natural lifespan. Trust the quantum intelligence orchestrating your collapse, even when you cannot see the emerging pattern. Quantum observation becomes your primary tool when you understand what it actually offers. Instead of using observation to try to force collapse into your preferred eigenstate, use observation to witness the natural quantum process. Be the observer, the measurement apparatus of consciousness itself, not the particle being measured. This quantum shift in identification changes the entire meaning of your crisis from annihilation to natural phase transition. When you observe from quantum field awareness rather than particle identification, you align with the fundamental recognition that the field remains constant through every particle collapse. You stop experiencing yourself as the eigenstate that's dissolving and start experiencing yourself as the Hilbert space, the quantum field, in which all possible eigenstates exist. Somatic quantum sensing becomes essential when you realize classical thinking cannot resolve what your quantum biofield is processing. Your breakdown isn't a future catastrophe you're analyzing. It's a present moment quantum collapse already unfolding in your cellular microtubules, waiting for your consciousness to stop interfering with measurement and start allowing natural resolution. Instead of trying to understand why your wave function is collapsing, drop into sensing what quantum information wants to resolve through your system. Your biofield knows how to process quantum state changes if you stop overriding its natural collapse sequence with mental control attempts. This doesn't mean losing coherence. It means allowing your system to complete the quantum transition. Feel the quantum sensations of your breakdown, not as experiences to prevent, but as information-bearing waveforms that have their own collapse trajectory. Trembling is your nervous system exhibiting quantum fluctuations before resolution. Tears are releasing quantum information stored in your biofield. Rage is your system establishing new quantum boundaries. Exhaustion is your field requiring downtime to integrate new quantum states. This quantum sensing creates alignment between your mental observation and your biofield reality. Movement and expression accelerate quantum integration because they allow your biofield to complete interrupted quantum processes. Your breakdown isn't merely psychological. It's a quantum biological event with measurable electromagnetic signatures that need physical expression. When you allow yourself to shake, releasing quantum perturbations, to collapse, allowing structural reorganization, to vocalize, expressing quantum information as sound, to move without classical restriction, you create quantum coherence between all levels of your system. This doesn't require dramatic release, though quantum systems sometimes need that. It means permission for your biofield to express quantum truth. Lie down like someone whose quantum structure has lost integrity. Let your voice express frequencies that have no verbal content. Breathe like someone whose quantum field is reorganizing. Tremble like someone whose biofield is discharging quantum perturbations. Move like someone navigating between quantum states. Here's where everything converges into quantum transformative truth. You are being asked to collapse into a new eigenstate right now. Not after the crisis passes. Not once you measure the outcome. Right now, in this quantum moment. The aspect of you that can witness total wave function collapse isn't a future possibility. It's a present moment quantum choice. Every moment you choose to allow quantum collapse rather than resist it, you strengthen the observer consciousness that exists outside the quantum system being measured. Every moment you choose quantum field identification, somatic presence, and recognition of yourself as the space in which quantum events occur, you literally rewire your neural quantum processes to recognize that you are not the collapsing wave function. You are the quantum field observing the collapse. This is the distinction between trying to survive breakdown as a particle and discovering yourself as the quantum field that remains coherent through all particle collapse. Most people allocate all energy toward preventing their eigenstate from changing. You're being invited to discover the quantum field that contains all possible eigenstates. Take another moment and comment below with one word that names which quantum state is collapsing in you right now. Not what you hope will remain in superposition, not what you're trying to preserve, but what's actually undergoing quantum collapse. Let this word be your conscious measurement, your participation in quantum resolution, your acknowledgement of what must collapse for new quantum states to emerge. The collective consciousness is experiencing quantum decoherence, and you're entangled in that field. Every person who chooses to consciously allow their quantum collapse rather than resist it contributes to the morphic field, what quantum physicists might call the global consciousness field, that makes it easier for others to face their own quantum transitions with observer awareness. Your personal collapse isn't isolated. It's part of the entangled system. This is why your quantum timing matters enormously. You're not just experiencing a private wave function collapse. You're participating in a species-wide quantum phase transition where collective humanity is experiencing the collapse of unsustainable superposition states. Your willingness to face your own quantum dissolution becomes a node of coherence in the collective field for others who are also experiencing quantum transition. As we move deeper, I want you to understand what's happening at the quantum level of your psyche. There's a principle in quantum phase transitions where systems accumulate quantum fluctuations until they reach a critical point and suddenly undergo first-order phase transition, instantaneous reorganization into an entirely different quantum state, like water suddenly becoming ice at 0 degrees C. Your identity is approaching its quantum critical point, where you'll suddenly find yourself operating from a completely different eigenstate that seemed inaccessible in your previous superposition. This quantum criticality explains why psychological transformation often feels instantaneous despite years of buildup. One day, you're maintaining your quantum superposition, and the next day, you've collapsed into an entirely new eigenstate. It's not that you gradually transitioned. It's that your system reached the quantum critical point where phase transition became instantaneous and irreversible. Here's what makes this quantum process profound. The eigenstate capable of integrating this breakdown isn't something you need to create. It's something that already exists in your quantum possibility space. At the level of quantum consciousness, all possible eigenstates, all potential versions of your identity, exist simultaneously in the wave function. The version of you identified with what's breaking. The version of you witnessing what's breaking from quantum field awareness. The version of you that has already integrated what this breakdown teaches. They all exist as potential eigenstates in your probability distribution, all equally real in quantum terms. Most people spend their breakdown desperately trying to collapse back into their previous eigenstate, not understanding that quantum mechanics doesn't permit backward phase transitions at critical points. It's not about reconstructing what collapsed. It's about recognizing the quantum field that contains all possible collapsed states and choosing which eigenstate to inhabit through conscious observation. Consider this quantum truth carefully. Right now, at this very moment, there exists an eigenstate of you that has already moved through this complete wave function collapse and integrated its quantum information. This isn't metaphorical comfort. This is the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics applied to consciousness. At the quantum level of your deepest awareness, every possible outcome of this crisis already exists as an actualized eigenstate in parallel probability branches. The reason you're encountering this transmission now is because the quantum barriers between these eigenstates are thinning. What physicists call quantum tunneling probability increasing. The potential energy barrier is lowering, and you're being prepared to quantum tunnel from your current collapsing eigenstate into an integrated eigenstate without having to climb the classical energy barrier between them. This isn't poetic language. This is actual quantum mechanics applied to consciousness architecture. Your awareness can tunnel through barriers that your classical mind says are impossible to cross. But here's what shifts everything at the quantum level. From the perspective of quantum non-locality, the future eigenstate of you that has integrated this breakdown exists in quantum correlation with your current state, sending quantum information backward through what physicists call retrocausality or advanced waves. Your future integrated eigenstate is reaching back through quantum entanglement to influence your present collapsing state toward the probability branch where integration occurs. This is why you've been experiencing inexplicable moments of quantum coherence amid the chaos, sudden insights that seem to come from outside time, unexpected resources that appear through synchronicities that defy classical probability, moments of inexplicable knowing that cut through panic. These aren't coincidences in the classical sense. They're quantum correlations, entanglement signals from the eigenstate that has already navigated this passage, sending quantum information back through the probability network. In quantum physics, there's experimental evidence for retrocausality, the future influencing the past at the quantum level. The famous delayed choice quantum eraser experiments demonstrate that measurements made in the future can affect the behavior of particles in the past. Your consciousness operates by similar quantum principles. The future eigenstate that has integrated your breakdown is making measurements that affect the probability distribution of your current quantum state. I'm curious about your direct experience of these quantum correlations. In the comments, share a moment during your current breakdown when information appeared, an insight, a resource, a conversation, a moment of unexpected clarity that felt like it came from outside linear time, from a version of you that already knows the outcome. These moments are evidence of quantum entanglement between your current eigenstate and your integrated eigenstate, and naming them strengthens the quantum correlation. As your breakdown approaches its quantum ground state, its lowest energy configuration, these retrocausal signals from your integrated eigenstate will intensify. What seems like random grace is actually increasing quantum entanglement between the fragmenting aspect of your consciousness and the integrated aspect that exists in superposition with it, waiting for conditions that allow quantum tunneling between states. Your nervous system is essentially undergoing quantum decoherence and recoherence right now. Decoherence, where quantum superposition collapses into classical definite states due to environmental interaction. Your old identity eigenstate is decohering, losing its quantum coherence, collapsing under the weight of observation and measurement. Simultaneously, a new eigenstate is beginning to recohere, to establish quantum coherence at a more complex level of organization. This process downloads new quantum operating instructions that recognize breakdown as quantum phase transition rather than classical mechanical failure. Instructions that can hold quantum superposition, terror and trust, collapse and coherence, death and emergence existing simultaneously without forcing premature collapse. Instructions that interpret disintegration as the quantum biological process it is, not the catastrophe your classical conditioning interprets it as. This quantum recoherence will continue for days and weeks after you finish this transmission, integrating deeper with each sleep cycle. During REM sleep, your brain exhibits quantum coherence properties that some researchers believe allow quantum processing of information. Your dreams may become more vivid, more symbolic, carrying quantum information from eigenstates you're tunneling toward. Pay attention. Your quantum unconscious is communicating through the only language available during phase transition, symbolic quantum imagery. This is why encountering this transmission at this specific quantum moment matters. Your psyche had to reach a particular threshold of decoherence before it could safely receive and integrate these quantum frameworks without your classical defenses immediately collapsing the wave function back into the familiar eigenstate. The fact that you're still reading, that these quantum concepts are creating resonance rather than resistance, indicates you've reached that quantum threshold. What you're experiencing isn't just intellectual understanding, it's quantum resonance recognition. Like two tuning forks vibrating at the same frequency, your consciousness is phase-locking with the frequency of these truths. Your biofield is remembering quantum principles it operated by before your defensive structures taught you to collapse into limited eigenstates through fearful observation. These quantum frameworks are your original operating system, your quantum blueprint, the way your consciousness functioned before it learned to limit itself to classical physics. The reason this quantum recognition can feel overwhelming, bringing tears, full-body chills, electromagnetic sensations moving through your field, is because you're not learning something foreign. You're remembering quantum nature that your defended particle self forgot. Your quantum field has been orchestrating this breakdown specifically to create the decoherence necessary for these quantum memories to resurface and recohere at a higher level. And now the quantum signal is clearer than it's ever been. The quantum noise of your defenses is diminishing. The quantum information from your integrated eigenstate is coming through with higher fidelity. All that remains is complete surrender to the wave function collapse you can no longer prevent, trusting that what you are at the quantum field level cannot be destroyed. Only the particular eigenstate you've been identifying with must decohere. You're not just watching a video. You're receiving a quantum transmission that will continue creating interference patterns in your biofield long after you close this browser. This transmission carries quantum-encoded information that will help your consciousness maintain observer coherence, even as your identity eigenstates collapse and reorganize, like a quantum entanglement bridge connecting your current state to more integrated probability branches. Every word that created quantum resonance, every concept that triggered recognition in your field, every moment your biofield responded with measurable sensation while listening. These are your integrated eigenstate confirming through quantum correlation that you're on the probability branch that leads through conscious collapse into quantum emergence. These aren't abstract physics concepts being shared. These are reminders of how quantum transformation actually functions at the deepest levels. Reminders that your particle identification forgot, but your field awareness never stopped knowing. The more you return to these quantum reminders, especially during moments when your breakdown intensifies and your wave function feels most unstable, the more you strengthen the neural quantum processes that can hold decoherence without fragmenting into trauma states. The more you strengthen those quantum processes, the more your crisis becomes a quantum phase transition rather than a classical catastrophe. This isn't linear recovery where you slowly reconstruct your previous eigenstate over years. This is quantum tunneling transformation, where everything reorganizes instantaneously at the moment of complete surrender. The moment you stop trying to control which eigenstate emerges and allow quantum intelligence to resolve your wave function naturally. Consider revisiting this quantum transmission tomorrow morning as your first conscious act, reinforcing these patterns when your biofield is most coherent and your quantum defenses haven't fully activated yet. Each viewing deepens the quantum interference patterns that support your capacity to witness collapse from field awareness rather than be consumed by it from particle identification. And if someone in your life is also approaching their quantum critical point, sharing this video creates quantum entanglement in the collective field that accelerates phase transition for both of you by expanding the coherent subset of consciousness, choosing quantum transformation over classical resistance. Trust what's decohering. Allow what's collapsing. Recognize the quantum field that remains. The universe isn't destroying you at the quantum level. It's allowing the collapse of eigenstates that were never your true quantum nature. Your breakdown is closer than the quantum fluctuation you're experiencing right now. Welcome to the quantum threshold of everything your particle self has been both dreading and secretly longing for. Until we meet again in this quantum space of necessary phase transition, remember, you are not the eigenstate that's collapsing. You are the quantum field, the Hilbert space, observing the collapse, and that field awareness is preparing for a quantum emergence beyond anything your current collapsed state could contain. The only quantum task remaining is to let your wave function completely collapse and discover what quantum field remains when every eigenstate dissolves. Then operate from that quantum field awareness with every breath, every observation, every moment of your inevitable quantum transformation. Speaking of what remains when eigenstates dissolve, there's another transmission that reveals why breakdown actually follows a precise quantum sequence that's been encoded in every wisdom tradition's description of dark night experiences. Understanding this hidden quantum architecture of crisis will completely transform how you navigate each phase of collapse. The quantum principles we've explored today become exponentially more applicable when you recognize which quantum phase you're in and what each phase is specifically preparing your consciousness for at the quantum level. Turning what feels like random suffering into a recognizable quantum developmental process with clear markers, phase transitions, and emergence points. In quantum physics, there's a phenomenon called quantum Zeno effect, where continuous observation can actually prevent a quantum system from evolving. The watched pot that never boils at the quantum level. But there's also the inverse quantum Zeno effect, where specific observation patterns can actually accelerate quantum transitions. Learning to observe your breakdown with the precise pattern that accelerates rather than prevents quantum phase transition is the difference between years of suffering and instantaneous emergence. The quantum framework I reveal in the advanced material shows you exactly how to become the type of observer whose measurement accelerates your own quantum evolution, rather than freezing you in collapsing eigenstates. But that's a transmission for those ready to go deeper into the quantum mechanics of consciousness transformation. For now, trust the quantum process. Surrender to the wave function collapse. Remember, you are the field, not the particle. Your quantum emergence is inevitable. The only question is whether you'll resist the natural quantum collapse sequence and create unnecessary decoherence trauma, or whether you'll surrender to quantum intelligence and allow the phase transition to unfold with the elegance that quantum systems exhibit when observation doesn't interfere with natural evolution. Welcome to your quantum initiation. The field is watching. The collapse is happening. The emergence is assured. And you are the quantum awareness witnessing all of it, unchanging and indestructible, regardless of which eigenstates come and go in the probability space you contain.